I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. A bunch more articles came out this fall about how foreign capital, money laundering, they're saying, is one of the main drivers in the Vancouver real estate market. Now, I don't know about money laundering. I do know that money coming in, flowing in from places like China has definitely had a fairly major impact on our housing market here. I've blogged about it many times before, especially in the higher end detached market. Now, the solution I floated out last summer is the same one that I'll just briefly talk about here. There's a lot of things being bandied about by various experts and think tanks on how we can fix this problem and how to, or at least how to level the playing field a little bit more. There's no one fix that's going to do is going to eliminate this problem. First off, I should say that I don't think we are ever going to stem the tide of money wanting to come into Canada from places like China. Just like it's flowing into the United States as well. People want to take money out of that country and put it into a safe haven like United States or Canada. So pretty difficult to stem that tide. However, what I floated last summer, and I'll talk about here again, I think is at least a step in the right direction to start leveling the playing field. And in my opinion, it's one of the only ways that we can actually implement, or one of the easiest ones that we can actually implement right now, because there are some harebrained ideas out there right now. People about progressive taxes and just some tying it to your assessed value, and just some things that would be just so unruly to try and enforce. It would be ridiculous. The cost to enforce these programs would be more than what you'd ever take in. But the simplest way to do this is to tie the home purchase in to the income tax return, or Canada Revenue Agency. So give you a few suggestions here. If someone wants to buy a home in Vancouver, then and designate that home as a principal residence, because if you go back to the blogs I was doing last summer, that is the one area where I really see things getting abused. It's where people are buying multiple homes. One wage earner or one bread earner is buying a principal residence for him and his family, and then he's buying several other properties and putting the kids' names on title. So now that becomes a principal residence for these kids, even though the kids are not the wage earner. And that's where we need to tie this together. You can only have one principal residence, of course, for tax reasons, where if you sell it, it's tax-free. But you also have to tie that to Revenue Canada and the Income Tax Act. So if you want to buy a house in Vancouver and declare it for principal residence purposes, for tax purposes, then you have to have filed a tax return in Canada, so in other words, earned income in Canada, and you are buying that house, of course, with after-tax dollars. If you can't meet that requirement, then if you want to buy a house in Vancouver, that's fine. If you're going to live in it full-time, that's fine as well, or part-time. But you cannot designate it now as a principal residence for tax purposes, meaning that when you sell it down the road, you will be fully taxed on the capital gain. So that is the most simple way to do it, because I really don't think we are ever going to stem the tide of capital coming into places like Vancouver or the United States. Difficult to do. Revenue Canada is way over their head and tracking that kind of stuff. But this solution is fairly straightforward. As I say, you have to file a return to buy a house and designate it as a principal residence here. And it would eliminate the situation where you're getting people buying 3 and 4 houses and putting each kid on title, and then selling the home 2 or 3 years later, making $800,000 on the sale, and that money flows tax-free to a kid who's 21 years old and at UBC and did not buy that house with after-tax money. So I really think that would be one of the best and one of the most simple ways to do it. Also, if someone does want to bring money into Canada, wants to bring $3 million in from China, then they have to pay tax on that money, use that after-tax income to purchase the house. That would be a step in the right direction. Is it going to solve a lot of the issues we've got, or is it going to cause the prices of homes to come down to more affordable levels, or to where the average wage earner in Vancouver is earning to be able to afford a house? It's not. It's not going to make any difference. But what it will do is it will level the playing field, and that these people that are buying these homes are now putting money into the general coffers for things like hospitals, for roads, for police and fire, which currently right now they're not. Because one other point I'll make here, and I've done blogs on this in the past, some people will say, well, these people are buying homes and they're paying property tax and PTT. They are. But property tax in Vancouver is dirt cheap. I've done blogs on how inexpensive property taxes are here. Our property taxes are supplemented here in Vancouver and in Canada. We pay a fraction of what they would pay in most major US cities. Where we get killed in Canada is on our income tax. So essentially, a buyer who doesn't have to file a tax return here, it is not paying Canadian taxes, and is able to buy multiple homes and designate them as principal residences and sell them tax-free, is basically riding on the taxpayer's coattails here. Sure, he's paying a little bit of property tax, which is supplemented by us taxpayers, and is able to sell the house as a principal residence. So this would be, in my opinion, the easiest step to at least start. And if someone who has not filed a tax return, as I say, who wants to bring money into Canada by whatever source and how they earned it, I don't know. Good luck unraveling all that. But if they wanted to buy a house, they're not a resident of Canada, they haven't filed a tax return, I want to bring in $3 million, no problem. Bring the $3 million in, we will tax you at your full marginal tax rate, which would get you, after tax, let's call it $1.9 million, and then you're free and clear to buy that home. But again, the other option would be to buy it with after-tax income that you've reported here and file the tax return on. That would at least be the first step in a lot of steps we're going to need to help at least level the playing field and put money into the coffers, the general coffers, for, as I say, roads, diking, hospitals, schools, social housing, that kind of thing. So we'll see where this goes, but that, in my opinion, is the first step, and the abuse of the principal residence exemption in buying multiple homes and not tying it to income earned in Canada. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.